are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing Lower Order, A Good Laugh, track 6 on Victory Lap. Today's a pretty special episode because we do not have Greg with us today. We actually have a guest host, and that is Matt Milkowski. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Heyo, how's it going, Steve?
It's going good. It's a Thursday night. It's 9:36 time here in Hamilton, and I just finished watching the Montreal Victoire get slammed by the Toronto Scepters in PWHL women's hockey.
And that is a bad thing?
Yes, that is a bad thing because I am from originally from Montreal, and I cheer against everything Toronto at all opportunity.
Got it. Well, I'm sorry for your tiny loss there.
If you could just kind of give the listeners a bit of a background on your connection with the show, kind of your history with propaganda. I know you've been on the show, you've had covers on the show and everything before, so everyone that listens knows you. But if you could just give everyone a little bit of a reminder.
Sure thing. In case you're not intimately familiar with my storied history. I'm Matt Milkowski from Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. And longtime fan of propaganda, of course. To say I'm a fan is putting it lightly. They're on my bike, they're on my car, and I probably listen to or think about them almost every day. I've also been a huge fan of this podcast since its inception. I've had a few stints, like you said, with some covers. I was lucky enough to be a guest interviewer with Steve Choi from RX Bandits on the PC Fascist episode. And I also got to collaborate with Willem from Anti-Lectual. We worked together to kind of reimagine the formerly lyricless contest song, and we made a version with lyrics about microplastics in the ocean.
Sediment dissolved, it's right between us all. A parting gift invisible and forgivable. I'm filling up the limitless bound. A token of appreciation in every cubic foot.
So not my first rodeo here, but this is, I think, my first time as an official co-host. So I'm excited.
Is as an official co-host, when I asked you to do the episode, and I imagine your initial reaction was, no, I do not want to do an episode. So what did you hope to expect kind of showing up to do this?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was sort of against the concept in general, and I think I felt that way up until about 15 minutes ago when we started talking, and now I'm truly pumped. I don't know. I think I feel really comfortable chatting with you for sure. You're someone who I respect a lot, and honestly, this song's pretty important to me. So the fact that we're doing an episode about Lower Order kind of gave me that push to be excited to be a part of the history of the song. And honestly, just to give poor Greg a break. So anytime we can give him a break, I'm on board.
Exactly. Except Greg's going to be editing this, so he's not getting much of a break. He just doesn't have to talk about something that he doesn't want to talk about, which he's talked about way too much. So I'm happy to give him a break on this subject specifically. But I'm super jazzed to have you do this episode with me because, like you said, you're someone that I have a whole lot of respect for, and the way that you live your life, and you're just so unbelievably kind and such an important and valued member of our Discord community, and such a good friend to so many of us. I'm just so excited to have you on to talk about for this topic specifically, because I think you have by far the most to contribute on this topic because you're the most knowledgeable out of every single person I know in this Discord. And then number two, because I've never done an episode on this topic before, I'm just super jazzed that I get to discuss this stuff with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's definitely something, animal liberation, animal welfare issues have been a part of my life in some shape or form forever. But I also uh, didn't really grow up in a vegan or vegetarian household. So I'm sure, like many of us who are listening, this became really important to me in the last 10 or 15 years. So it's going to be interesting for me to talk about the issue kind of from like a before, during, and after stance in terms of like my own journey. And I'm also curious to hear about yours. So I'm excited to get into it. That's actually part of why I wanted to also include an interview that we're going to get to, I guess, in a little bit with someone who really inspires me, named Sage Max, who we're going to hear from in a little bit. We got to chat about the amazing work that they're doing to protect animals as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait for that. Before we dive deep into it, anything interesting going on that you just want to, and anything, I mean, obviously there's a lot of weird, interesting things going on right now, but I don't want to really, I don't want to give that weird stuff in the world another platform. Anything exciting or positive or happy that you'd love to share?
Oh boy, positivity. I vaguely remember that feeling. Let's see. Well, I've this will give you a sense of my age if you don't already know, but I've recently picked up whittling, as in
Yes.
carving small wooden sculptures. So I'm a visual arts teacher. That's my job. I'm a high school art teacher, but I do mostly drawing and painting. So I've always like dabbled with other things, but somehow whittling came into my sphere recently, and I am totally obsessed with it. It's just like 5 minutes feels, or excuse me, 30 minutes feels like 5 minutes. It's just like time passes in such a relaxing way. So the last couple of weeks, I've just been kind of like a hamster, just sitting in like a bed of shavings, just kind of relaxing as I like carve away little animals and figures out of a piece of
Do,
wood.
do you have one near you that you could show me right now?
Oh God, I don't, unfortunately.
Oh,
I'll text you a picture.
okay. I was going to do a live description to our audience.
I'm sorry. But like a little bunny here. Got a guy whose head is a fish instead of a human head. Typical.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, that's a sweet new hobby. Like just picking up a new hobby like that. That's awesome. I love that.
It even has like special gloves. I mean, I think if you're a badass, you don't wear the gloves. You just like take the cuts, but I'm not there yet. So I have my special like safety gloves that I wear, which feels like, it's kind of like Batman gear. I like it.
Is there like a whittle talk, like a whittling community on TikTok or something?
Like, I don't know if this is surprising or not, but there's not a ton out there. There's like a handful of core videos, but I wouldn't say I'm part of the community yet. I'm sort of adjacent. But I also think whittling is like inherently, it's a hobby for people who like to be isolated anyway. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's super cool to be able to just produce things. I mean, having like little wooden animals and stuff just seems awesome. Like I'm an animals guy. We're both animals guys. That's why we're doing this episode. Having more animals around isn't like you can see I've got a crocheted Highland cow right there behind me that Zoe made.
Man, Zoe made that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good stuff. Yeah, part of this, one thing that spurred it was I have a couple friends who have like their first kid, who are just like weeks old. And my first instinct was like, I should probably whittle them something. So I got to figure out what's like child safe. But that's part of the goal here too.
Because you could like whittle something that's like the equivalent of like the wooden blocks and stuff that kids have, right? That they could play with if it's big enough and they're not going to choke on it. I don't.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So we'll see. Maybe someday I'll whittle you something.
Oh, I'm in.
Okay.
I need a Matt Milkowski original on my record shelf behind me there, where all my other stuff is.
You'll be the first like full grown human that I gift a whittling. Sure too.
I love it. And then my positive contribution and sharing is I've recently taken up and like seriously trying to start a meditation practice.
Oh man, okay.
And I've never been able to do it in my entire life, and I've been really working hard since January. Wasn't an official resolution or anything, but I've been working hard, and this week I achieved 10 minutes of absolute pure focus.
Wow.
And
Are you like sitting silently, or is it like walking meditation? I don't really know how
Si-
that works.
Sitting silently, cross-legged, 10 minutes of pure clarity and like focus. I hit that, and the 10 minutes went by and felt like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It was wild. And I'm someone who suffers from a very loud and chaotic inner monologue at all times that just moves like 1,000 miles an hour. So for me to like achieve that complete like quietness in the head and everything, man, awesome.
Congrats. It sounds hard to me. It sounds really hard. Is there like an afterglow effect kind of, or is it more just while you're in the moment?
I mean, it helps like it for me. It like really helps just kind of set the rest of the day, like it set the tone for the rest of the day because you kind of go into it just a bit more, like less on edge, really.
Yeah.
Because I'm someone who lives like on edge, like primo anxiety all the time, everything. So I'm just super jazzed about it and highly recommend if anyone that's listening was into it, send me a message, whatever. I will explain how I got it to finally stick after, I've been trying to do this for 25 years and it's never worked. And suddenly, 44 years old, finally figured it out.
Hey, well, congrats.
Thank you. So I think next up, let's hear the cover that we have. So this one, it was sent in by a longtime listener of the show, Vanessa from Brazil. The cover is actually performed by Tomas Rosati from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And here's a quote from Vanessa on it saying, he's part of a really cool band in Rio called El Efecto, which has a lot of influence from Propaganda. And unfortunately, we received this cover in April of 2023, and we've been sitting on it for this long. That's how long it's taken us to do this episode. So thank you so much to Vanessa and Thomas for their patience in finally getting this out to everyone. So let's hear that cover right now.
My first hunting trip was kind of eventful. It was me about 5 or 6 and a essential at a for those consigned here with a dick shot size 5 was recommended for a clear fish and kill. They laugh as I cry and stroke his blood so he runs and wheels. Don't recall just how I get there. To the hatchery I mean stumble through a rush on a field tree. And then he stood in front of me. I stood put up on the concrete bed to verify what I was seeing. The aftermath of stumbling doors upon hundreds tiny helpless beings. Hello, despair, and bullshit rain. How do you do, my glitter cage? Stupid chick on the conveyor belt, staring at her sovereign food. Stupid big despairing at the sight of his companion on a hole. You ever see that stupid cow chasing the truck that drove off with her calf? Stupid lower are always good. Good for a good laugh. They bark, they claw.
We're back. What did you think of that cover?
And it was really, really calming. I mean, I love how dynamic the performance was, both the vocals and the guitar. Obviously, a dramatically different take than the original, but it made total sense. You know, it didn't feel like it was a different musical style, you know, just for fun or as an experiment. You could really, you know, sense how sincere the lyrics kind of translated through the music, just like the original version. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I feel like the song, like the way, like obviously it's a good song and good songs work like across genre and across everything. But I feel like it was just beautiful. And the way the lyrics translated to how the song was done, I thought it fit perfectly. So awesome cover. Loved it.
Yeah, fantastic work. And at least we got it in before 2 complete years.
Yeah, just under the wire. And hopefully this episode comes out before April 2025.
Do it. Yeah.
Greg has about 2.5 weeks to get this episode out after we record it today before this becomes embarrassing.
Exactly.
So if you want to give us a bit of a, we'll go to do the interview next, and then we'll dive into the song after the interviews. If you want to just let everyone know about your interview.
Yeah, really excited and honored. I actually came relatively prepared in that with the recording of this interview from just a couple weeks ago. I kind of set the stage. So I'll let you hear a little bit more about that in a second. But yeah, short story. This is someone that I immediately thought about when I knew that we were preparing for this song, and Greg mentioned that. So I'll just go back in the Wayback Machine and we'll hit play and hope you enjoy it.
My first hunting trip was quite eventful. Must have been about 5 or 6 at essential rite of passage. For those kids sat here with a dick, shots at 5 was recommended for a cleaner fish to kill. They laughed as I cried and stroked his blood-soaked iridescent quills. Don't recall just how I got there. To the hatchery, I mean, stumbled through the bush on a field trip. And there it stood in front of me.
Hey, y'all. Matt Milkowski here, friend of the podcast, and technically veteran guest interviewer, as I've done this once before. It's not really important why I'm here. It's mostly to help poor Greg Soden, who's working himself to the bone for this endless project, but also because I know someone that I think really is important for this episode, someone I've come into contact with over just the last couple months, and that is Sage Max. Sage Max is the legal operations specialist at Legal Impact for Chickens. And if you, like me, wondered if that's a real thing, yes, it definitely is, and they're an amazing nonprofit doing some really important work. So I knew Sage wasn't specifically a Propagandhi fan yet, so I was curious how they would feel about the song Lower Order, but more importantly, I really wanted to give them a chance to talk about the work that they're doing at Legal Impact for Chickens, and really just sort of talk about animal advocacy in general. So, you know, Sage has a really long history fighting for animals. They founded the Animal Welfare Litigation Program at Richmond Law and Policy. They've worked as an advocate for animals at a number of nonprofits like Mercy for Animals, World Animal Protection, and the Humane Society of the United States. And currently, they serve on the board of Connect for Animals, which you should definitely check out as well. So I know you're going to love what Sage has to say. They're just a really sweet and amazing person who is working hard to make sure that all animals, not just human animals, have a high quality of life. And I think we may have converted them to be a Propagandhi fan. So let's find out. All right. Well, I am here with Sage Max. Sage, thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Matt. It's an honor.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know in the podcast, we're always excited to have guests who maybe aren't as familiar with propaganda originally. And so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first of all, I was hoping, we know that you work with Legal Impact for Chickens. And I was hoping you could tell us just a little bit about LIC and maybe what your role is in the organization.
Yeah, happy to. I'll try not to talk too much, but we're a 501c3, and we're dedicated to protecting all animals, specifically farmed animals for the most part, from cruelty, and we use litigation. So you may or may not know that 9 billion chickens are killed for food in the U.S. every year, and most of them live really short and painful lives on factory farms. So chickens are sensitive, intelligent animals, and they develop friendships with one another. I can definitely share some more chicken facts later. But overall, in most states in this country, animal cruelty is a crime. And so every state has different laws against animal cruelty. And in some, there's no exemption for factory farming. So any type of abuse that's illegal to do to a kitten in your house is also illegal to do to a chicken on a factory farm. But when there are undercover investigations into the treatment of animals on factory farms, they're repeatedly uncovering animal abuse, a lot of which propaganda is very, very familiar with. The thing that we do is just to prove that no one is above the law. As big as a company like Tyson or Purdue is, they can still be held accountable. They do have so much power that it feels sometimes like they are above the law, but police and prosecutors, they don't often help either. They rarely investigate or prosecute animal cruelty and neglect on factory farms, even when groups like ours urge them to. And so when arrests and prosecutions do happen, they usually focus on individual workers, which is definitely not punk and not what we want either. So LIC, call ourselves LIC, get used to it, weird acronym.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right, moving forward.
Yep.
I'll be using that.
Good. We're a nonprofit, and we just do litigation. We sue companies in civil court for violation of criminal anti-cruelty laws. And there are some special mechanisms that allow plaintiffs to sue in civil court for violation of criminal laws. And our whole thing is holding large corporations accountable when they violate the law. So thanks for letting me do my little spiel.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so in my position, I'm a paralegal and I do operations stuff, so I just try to keep things running so that our attorneys can do their important work. And then a fun part of my job is getting to meet people like you when you reach out to us for something like a zine or speaking to your class. So it's such a fun way to get to know you.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Sage and I we don't go way back, but we're not strangers either. Yeah, we established a relationship through an art project, and Sage has just been super generous in terms of donating time to talk to my students in our animal activism club and just kind of continue to keep our relationship going. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. I want to give you props for the zine that you created recently that gave money away to orgs like LIC, and some other amazing groups around the country. That was really quite kind of you. And I'm still working my way through a lot of the crossword puzzles. They're not easy. That's
the most common feedback I get. So if I ever make another one, maybe it'll be a little lighter. We'll see.
Good.
But thanks for trying. So do you have a history with animal activism before LIC, or was this like your first employer in that field?
No, very much not. Every job I've ever had since I started college has been in the animal rights movement. So I grew up vegetarian, which is very lucky. I don't get the credit for that. But my parents did do that for animal advocacy reasons in the 90s. They learned about this stuff and figured that they didn't want to be a part of any animal suffering. And so, yeah, they went vegetarian. And then I was one of those vegetarian kids in school just like yelling at everybody about eating meat, explaining to them where their meat came from, like getting into fights with my grandparents. So it was great. It was a good vibe. And then I grew up in Gainesville, Florida, which has a really good punk scene. And one of my claims to fame is that I would do Food Not Bombs with my parents, and occasionally Laura Jane Grace from Against Me would show up because Against Me is from Gainesville.
Ooh, it's funny. Just last night, Greg was sharing on the Discord this new song. I don't know if you heard it. I'm not sure if I can even repeat it. I don't remember the exact title, but it involves God and his genitalia. Does this sound familiar?
No, it does not. But that sounds amazing.
Okay, I think it came out like 2 days ago. It's a pretty incredible intro to a song. That's all I'll say. So you should check it out. But Laura Jane Grace just keeps knocking it out of the park.
That's wonderful. Nice.
Okay, so it's nice to hear a little bit about your history. I mean, me personally, I did not come from a background that had any animal activism. We were a meat-eating household, so for me, this is something that the band helped introduce to me and slowly grew over time. But I have always loved animals in general. I guess outside of activism, can you tell us about your animal situation? Do you have any pets or companions in your house? At work, are there ever animals? I know you're working in DC right now, but tell us a little about animals in your life.
Yeah, I love to. You can always count on someone to talk about their animal kids for a long time. I'll keep it short, though. I have 2 cats, and unfortunately, cats do eat meat. But I love them anyway. They're very cute, and they're adjusting to city life again. But right before I moved here, I had 2 chickens and 2 pigeons who live with me in Florida. So that was really special. I really loved getting to know some chickens for the first time. And the pigeons that I had were rescued from New York. So that was just a fun story. Yeah.
So well traveled.
Yep. What about you?
I just have a dog. Lemon is like our primary resident animal, but there's a corn snake named Jupiter, who's a class companion. So she is in the classroom like 9 or 10 months out of the year, and then she comes home just for like the breaks for vacation, and my kids are always really excited for that.
That's so awesome. I love it. But she's very cool.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. So I guess we'll start with the chickens that you had before. Any fun chicken stories, or if not there, maybe chicken stories related to Lick?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of fun chicken facts that legal impact for chickens hordes. But yeah, the chickens that I had, they were really, they were sweet, but they also weren't. I feel like it's important to not lie to people about them being nice all the time. They were mean to each other. Chickens can sometimes do that. The whole pecking order thing is real. So yeah, there was definitely a dominant chicken. And yeah, so Chickpea, R.I.P., she was nice to me, but not nice to her sister Eleanor.
Oh, no.
But some good chicken facts. They are really empathetic. They have been documented to help one another when, for example, a hen has lost her sight. They'll follow her around and make sure that she's safe, and even leave worms for the blind hen to eat. So that's like some community love that you don't get to see even in human populations very often.
Man, that is crazy. All right, anything else?
Oh, yeah, so many, but I'll just give you one more.
Okay.
Studies have also shown that chickens can remember up to 100 individual chickens, and they even recognize humans. Like, my chickens definitely knew who I was. They can remember you after months of being separated, too.
Wow.
It's just,
and that's all visual, just from eyesight?
Yeah, isn't that wild?
That is crazy.
That's my last chicken fact for now. Thank you for the platform.
Gotcha. I am jealous because Jupiter, my corn snake, it's maybe recognizes me slightly, but I think it could be anyone. We get the same reaction, but she's friend to all, so.
That's great.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're from the Gainesville area, and that I know you said you have some history with punk. So can you tell us just like a little bit about that? Has punk played a big role in your life, either back in the past or currently?
Yeah, I love all kinds of music. I grew up with lots of music. My dad playing stuff for us that wasn't always appropriate for kids. There was a lot of Eminem and Frank Zappa, just off the top of my head. Great. So yeah, I really love all genres. I do feel like a poser sometimes when I am in like a punk setting. So Gainesville has a really big punk festival. It's just called Fest. And I think Propagandhi was there in 2011.
They've definitely played there, which is an honor, because a lot of times they won't play big fest just because if there's a certain amount of corporate sponsorship, they're like, we're out. So I think, if they're agreeing to play, it's got to say something about the organization of the event.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah, it's definitely a little more corporate now. Like PBR is absolutely giving them some money to do stuff. So I could see Propaganda not coming back. But I am really bummed that I missed them in 2011. I was there. I was in high school. I just wasn't cool enough to be going to Fest yet. So I'll have to go out of my way to see them now.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds so you've listened to this song, I know. Have you, before we even talk about that, have you kind of been like dabbling a little bit with some of their catalog since we prepared for this podcast?
Yeah, just a little bit. I love their stuff. It sounds like a lot of other things that I like. Hopefully that's not rude to say. I'm sure all of you who run this pod are very much fans of their differences. But yeah, I like it. It's been great. I'm really annoyed that I hadn't heard of them before now.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the song that we're here to discuss, which is A Lower Order. Of course, I reached out to you because this is one of their songs that deals with animal activism issues. So I guess I would like to start with maybe if you could think back to your first initial reaction to the listen. I don't know, did you have the lyrics out or did you just sort of take it in? Do you have any takeaways from your first listen? Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I wanted to not have the lyrics the first time because I don't know, that's just different. I'd be not focusing on the song necessarily. So yeah, I thought it was a good bop. So if you weren't listening to the lyrics, it didn't seem necessarily like a depressing song. So it was fun to just go in with that first. And then I'm one of those people who can't understand lyrics in a song easily, so I definitely didn't hear most of it. But yeah, it was a really catchy song. I've got some of it running through my head right now. But I don't know if this makes sense, but it kind of just like could also be about a nostalgic part of someone's life. It's not necessarily like a protest song if I just like heard it, I don't know, in a movie on a road trip or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming it's a little intentional. Like for their catalog, it's pretty rare. I mean, even the fact that there's like clean tone guitars, it's not all distortion, is pretty unusual for them. Definitely more upbeat and melodic. So it certainly stands out musically from the rest of their catalog. I don't know if it's on any like rom-com soundtracks per se, but yes, it's definitely unique in that sense. So once you took a look at the lyrics, can you maybe tell us about what your reaction to the lyrics were, either overall or if there was a specific, line that caught your attention?
Yeah, they're really intense. I've been doing animal advocacy for my whole career, and so I have kind of graduated to the point where I don't have to see things like well, let me see if I can quote the actual lyrics. Like in my early days of advocacy, I would watch these intense videos where you would see stuff like chickens being debeaked, having their wings clipped, toes cut, and branded. Yeah. And so, yeah, I really have been able to avoid seeing that more recently. Like my coworkers, bless them, they'll be the ones now to watch like undercover footage that we got from Foster Farms, a chicken farm. So, yeah, it was really vivid and definitely depressing and just, traumatizing to, I guess, read and hear the things like the aftermath of stomping boots upon hundreds of tiny helpless beings, because I can picture that really well, maybe better than the average person. So, yeah, thanks for that, Matt. Great song.
Yeah, I know the host, Greg, I'm sure he'll mention this, was just not looking forward to this episode at all. And, prior to this song, the band has had other songs relating to animal abuse that have been a little bit more detached, a little more abstract storytelling, but not getting into those visceral details. So this is sort of a return to, something that they maybe would have said at a show. They were like famous or infamous or in the 90s, always kind of like badgering their fans for not being, vegan enough or whatever the case may be. So it's really interesting to hear them come back with a song like this that is so explicit in the violence that does occur. So I was curious, I know you've maybe taken a personal break from taking that sort of content, but do you have any thoughts about just that approach in general of exposing the general public to, explicit violence as a means to sort of shock them into maybe caring? Do you think that can be effective, or do you think that it can just be dismissive or push people away from caring about animals?
I think that's a great question. It's one that advocates are asking, or we ask ourselves all the time. I came up in the movement with some pretty straight-laced orgs, although the people who founded them were punk. They just started covering up their tattoos with button-downs. But yeah, so that kind of world, like Mercy for Animals, the Humane League, those groups take like a little bit more calm approach. They'll encourage you to try Meatless Mondays and share a little bit of graphic stuff. But yeah, for the most part, groups like that think that other groups like Direct Action Everywhere, who go in and do open rescue, they would be taking animals out of environments like the ones in the song. And yeah, they're pretty radical, stand on tables in restaurants and shout at people, which sounds great. I'm really, annoyed that I couldn't find online Propaganda doing one of their rants in concert. That sounds awesome.
I'll send you some links if they're out there.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. But yeah, to answer your question, really, I think it takes all kinds of messaging to get to people. So the explicit approach, is sometimes what certain people need. It's definitely not for everyone. But I do think it's important that we have this variety. So, like, we're getting to people from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's a huge part of this song, of course, is the shock value. But just this notion of the lower order, at least for me, it stood out as well. I think, of course, people, they don't want to support that, but, it's hard for them to change their habits. But I also think that it is true that there's this general notion that people do think of non-human animals as less than, even kind of aside from like the horrific things that happen in factory farms. And I was just curious if you've come across that in your work or your life amongst people that you're close with or not, this notion that, life is maybe less precious or less valuable if it's a non-human animal versus a human animal.
Yeah, for sure, of course. But I'm so in my awesome little bubble of animal rights people that I didn't even get the song title until I listened to it like maybe 3 times. I didn't get lower order, like, oh, that's why. So
I think so.
No, that makes sense.
We'll hear more analysis in the episode, but that was my takeaway at least.
Okay, good. Yeah. So no, of course people still feel that way. I think it's what makes us able to eat animals and their products is just separating ourselves so much from that. Yeah, so I think it's necessary. I'd love to know more about your background with animal rights things and maybe vegetarianism, because you said that you started getting into the band when you were 14?
Actually, I was 12. It was 7th grade when my older punk mentor gave me a mixtape with Propaganda. But, I'd say really all throughout high school and beyond, I connected with their messaging on human issues, so critiquing racism or capitalism. But I really brushed off all of their songs about animal activism and animal abuse. Definitely my family and my circle of friends, and including in the punk community, were all, meat eaters. And that dialogue just didn't come up much. And so I think it wasn't until college I started picking up some books like Eating Animals, and there was a food reporter named Monica Eng on Chicago Public Radio that talked a lot about vegan and vegetarian options in Chicago. And it was just kind of like a light switch that, I love animals and I needed to take this issue of consuming them much more seriously. So, even now I'm not fully vegan. My diet's maybe 90 to 95% vegan. But I also sort of subscribe to the belief that, what's most important is, reducing as much harm as possible. So the notion that, maybe convincing 2 people to become 90% vegan, might in the long run be better than working harder to convince 1 person to be 100% vegan. Or convincing 10 people who will never be vegan or vegetarian to at least boycott products from factory farms, which is the majority of animal products. But certainly there are places where animals were able to have a life with exhibiting somewhat natural behaviors, have access to fresh air and sunlight. And it's really tricky. There are economic barriers and a lot of misinformation that make it hard to find that. And this is very Michael Pollan-y, which I know Propaganda would disapprove of. But to me, those who are making small steps or medium steps in the right direction should be encouraged, not, shunned from the community. And that's really the path that I took that got me to a mostly vegan lifestyle now.
If you were at a show and Propaganda heard you say that, what would their reaction be? Like, how intense are they in person about this kind of stuff?
Now, I mean, they're like all sweethearts. They're so considerate live. They always hang out after every show and just talk to whoever. They're also, I think like all of that militance, public presenting militance is gone. I think, Chris seems to be somewhat of a tortured individual. He has a great sense of humor, but you can tell like all these issues just weigh on him every single day probably. But I don't think, I don't think that he expects all of his fans are 100% vegan or anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. Next time I see him, we'll see.
I think that's a reasonable position, and it is funny that it changed with age, because I think I've seen that happen to everyone that I know. You just kind of realize that it is unrealistic to expect everyone to eat zero animal products. That's just not the world that we live in. And you're definitely right about, like, even if we take 7 people doing Meatless Monday, that's better than me getting one person and making sure that they stay vegetarian for the rest of their life. It's a challenge, so take it where we can get it. And I know that the animals appreciate anything that we can do for them like that.
Yeah, and it is. I know you said you were raised vegetarian. It sounded like from the beginning. So one of the reasons why it's hard for me is because my partner is not. I mean, she's very accommodating and has changed her habits quite a bit. But there's always animal products in our household, and so that's part of the struggle. It's like, if an animal product is going to be thrown in the garbage, then I'm like, well, I'd rather eat it than it go to complete waste. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't have a visceral reaction of disgust when I eat it, but it's the notion of it being killed for nothing is even worse to me. So that's kind of why I still have bits of egg or dairy occasionally. But what's nice is, unlike me, my kids have sort of naturally, they just seem to prefer a vegan, vegetarian path. Like, my daughter just doesn't like animal meat. They love the like processed, salty, impossible stuff. That's for sure. I don't know if that's good for them, but it's good for animals, I guess.
Yep, sure. That's so funny. That's great. I know I'm gonna keep asking you questions, but I'd love to know if you've shared Propaganda songs with people to try to get your point across before, or do you find other methods more effective?
Well, I would say not specifically to someone who's maybe in opposition, but I have for someone who's expressed interest.
Okay.
I also have occasionally snuck Propaganda into my teaching, which I'm really careful about because it's not my job to preach to them anything. It's my job to facilitate their own independent thoughts so they can make those choices. But there have been some instances where there's a reason where students need to like explore a piece of media, whether it's like a podcast or a song, and I might put that out as an option, which has been really exciting. And then I have Propagation Station. There's like 15 vials where students can propagate and take plants for free in the classroom. And of course, when I see propagation, I couldn't resist. So I think there's a subtitle on the sign that's like, if you're interested in fast, heavy music with progressive values, check out Propaganda, and like the same font as propagation. So that's just like an Easter egg in the classroom that maybe someone will see.
Nice job. That's great.
Yeah. So I'm also a little bit curious. I know we've talked about different approaches to maybe convincing others, whether it's sharing media or being more or less extreme, but have you found are there any specific tips that you found successful for kind of starting to move the needle for someone who's maybe hesitant about changing their habits? Of course, like I said, people are usually, they're on board with the idea of reducing animal cruelty, but they're just so entrenched in their, day-to-day habits, it can be tough. So have you had any good experiences that you could share there?
Sure, yeah. We covered so many of the things that I had written down about this because I was trying to be more middle of the road because, I know statistically that's more effective too. But yeah, like we talked about alternatives. There's Impossible. There are products that replace chicken like Gardein. And those are really widespread. They're in your supermarkets now, which is great. So that's just one way to be kinder to birds, is just to check out some alternative products. For me, if people ask what they can do for animals, like if they change one part of their diet, I would say that they should give up eggs because eggs are the cruelest toward animals, to any animal. Chickens are kept alive a long time. It's really hard on their bodies to make eggs because a chicken in her life in the wild, a natural chicken, might lay 12 eggs in a year. And in factory farms, they're laying an egg a day sometimes, and that is just so hard on their bodies. It's leaching calcium. I watched it slowly kill my sweet chickpea, and it's just the one thing. Sorry, got too into the weeds on eggs, but there's so many good replacements for eggs too. If you like to scramble them, there's Just Egg, which is also in a lot of grocery stores. In baking, you can replace eggs with applesauce, bananas, flax meal, and then there's something really fun for like meringues. If you've heard of aquafaba, it's the water in a can of chickpeas, and you can whip that up just like egg whites. It's wild. So those are some really good ones. For dairy, I like Violife cheese. But if you want, come to me anytime for a list of these products. But that's, I think, a good place to start. And like we were saying, it's not an all or nothing thing with diet change. Anytime that you enjoy a single meal of vegan chicken meat or egg, you are helping an animal, and you're also reducing the demand on companies to produce such a large quantity of chicken and eggs so fast and so cheaply, which is really where the suffering comes in.
Yeah, I'm also curious where you stand. You mentioned how widespread these products are, which is great, and I live in a big city, so I can find them easily in grocery stores. But I'm always a little conflicted with, I was excited about the Impossible Whopper at Burger King, but there's that, dichotomy between, do I want to give them my money so they can, continue this trend and show other fast food companies that it's profitable, or should I not, because I'm still giving Burger King a lot of money who still, most of their products are animal products. So I don't know. Have you taken a stance one way or another on that issue?
That is also a great question, and something that came up so much in the animal community when the Whopper came out. Still fun to go grab that. But I think you're right about both things. You want to show support for the product so that they keep having it, so that people like you and me can go enjoy a burger at any Burger King in the United States. But we are giving them money. They're making profit on that goes toward other things in their business model too. So, yep, you got to think about all the things. I don't know.
It's never easy.
Nope.
All right. Well, outside of Lick, I guess we can wrap this up pretty soon. But I was curious, either as of recent or in the past, are there any other kind of animal activism shout-outs you want to bring attention to, either a book or an organization or just a website, perhaps?
Yeah, I've got an answer for most of those. So I think some orgs that are really great if you're just interested in learning more about all of the things that happen to farmed animals and how you can help. The Humane League is great, and Animal Outlook is wonderful too. They're our client on some lawsuits. So I would start there, and then there are plenty of other orgs doing legal work for farmed animals. There's Advancing Law for Animals, Animal Partisan, and the Animal Legal Defense Fund. Gotta give a shout out to our friends. And then if you want to, just read more about all of these issues, I would check out Sentient Media, because that's their whole thing. So those are some good places to start.
Awesome. And what's your primary source of funding for Lick? Mm-hmm. Is it private donation?
That's a great question. Yeah, we get some grants, and we have a lot of individual donors who give to us sometimes monthly. It's really awesome to hear how people find us, and I would love to hear how you found us too. But it's definitely just like individual people who keep us afloat because they care about the mission, and that's a really special thing. It's not true for most organizations that we get strangers finding us on the internet because they love chickens.
Yes, is that my kids? Come on in. My children might be joining this interview.
Great.
You want to come on the podcast? Okay, I'll be right there. It's my daughter Veda.
Nice.
Fundings that we're talking about.
How did you find?
What was I just asking? Oh, yes. Okay, and we're back. I don't remember exactly. It was a friend of a friend situation, and I had been donating, my charitable donations at the end of the year were larger organizations, like national organizations. And I think I was just talking to them about trying to find some more specific, less widely known organizations to support. So I don't have a super exciting story. It was just like a friend of a friend was like, oh, I heard about this crew who looks out for chickens and sues factory farms.
That's great.
And then I checked it out and it seemed great. Yeah.
Awesome. Word of mouth. Yeah. And what a lovely friendship this has become. So thank your friend for us.
What can I ask? I don't know if it's like top secret, but are you involved in any particular cases or lawsuits right now, or is anything recently just wrapped up that you want to share? Then maybe after that, if you could tell us about your email list or other ways that we could support Lick.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Okay, so another lawsuit that we have is a consumer protection lawsuit against a local shop here in DC called Harvey's Market. And they sell foie gras under a banner that advertises the products as humane, natural, and free range. But foie gras is especially inhumane, unnatural, and comes from ducks who are forced to live their whole lives stuck indoors. And yeah, so we're going after them for claiming these very untrue things. And yeah, if you want to hear more about how that case goes and everything else, you can check us out at legalimpactforchickens.org/ oh gosh, I'm not going to remember the exact slash, but go to the website link and you'll find us.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll double check that it's the accurate link. So
okay, wonderful. But yeah, we're also on all the social media platforms too, just Legal Impact for Chickens.
Okay, gotcha. Well, Sage, as you heard, yeah, my daughter is eagerly awaiting my return. And thank you. I kept you waiting at the beginning of this interview, but I really appreciate how flexible you were. That was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun, and I have to go now and listen to everything Propagandhi has ever done.
Yeah, well, it's going to take a while, but yes, I can send some animal notes your way too about certain songs.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, that's it. Thanks, Sage. Talk later.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
And we're back.
Okay. Thank you again so much to Sage Max and everyone at Legal Impact for Chickens. We're probably preparing for a somewhat dark episode with lots of things to be upset about, but knowing that someone like Sage is out there doing the work that they do really kind of balances that and gives us all a little bit of hope. So Sage, thanks so much for your time and also for working with my students and staying in communication. So I really, really appreciate everything you all do.
Thank you for doing what you do. We need more people out there that do that. So thank you. Okay, let's get into the song. This is going to be pretty heavy. So content warning for anyone listening right now. If you're at all uncomfortable with the idea of factory farming and animal agriculture and some of the practices that take place within these industries, I would say, you know what? Shut her off now. We'll see you next time. But for those of you that want to keep going, we have a very informative and hopefully high quality episode for you. Anything you'd like to add before we go in, or do you feel like I covered it there?
I guess I'm just curious. Can you just summarize? I know I talked about a little bit in my interview with Sage, my history, but can you just summarize where you are with your current eating habits and maybe how you got there? Just the brief version.
Absolutely. where I am with my current eating habits, I am a strict vegan, and I have been for over 15 years. And prior to that, I was a whatever was in front of me type of person. And I went from that to vegan overnight, just without any like no, there was no vegetarian transition, no nothing. It was just woke up one day and that was it. Um, and where and I had mentioned it kind of when I first joined the show, but like my first experience with in term like knowing what veganism was, because I grew up in a house that was very meat centric, and my first experience with anything was when I got a copy of Less Talk More Rock and Earth Crisis Firestorm, and like those two records pretty much changed like my entire life trajectory in terms of a lot of things, not just my eating habits and stuff. It took a while to actually like kind of kick in, but I eventually got there. And yeah, so that's kind of my background on it.
Got it. Yeah, well, this song, it's not super long, both like in terms of time or lyrics. So maybe we'll just kind of start going through those lyrics, breaking them down. And if you want to start us off with that first line and tell us what you think.
So, first line, my first hunting trip was quite eventful. I must have been about 5 or 6. There's a lot to unpack in this one because, I mean, the idea of bringing a 5 or 6-year-old on a hunting trip is, to me, as a 44-year-old person, sounds insane, and I would never do that. But I understand that, as you'll find out on the next line, that some people definitely view it as the rite of passage for the young man. And yeah, it's even saying it out loud sounds a bit weird. But I'll just give like I had one of these myself, but it wasn't really a hunting trip per se. It was I was I have 2 older cousins who I hung out with frequently, and they had a boat. Their family had a boat. It was like just a tiny fishing boat. But so I went out one morning. I stayed over at their house, and we went out the next morning on the boat. And we go out, and then like my uncle pulls out a gun and just starts shooting at ducks. And I remember just being so confused as to what was going on. Fortunately, he did not hit anything the entire time, but I thought it was just weird. And now that I think about it, imagine if that would happen to someone now, where like a relative brings someone else's child to a surprise hunting excursion.
Right. I'm sure that is still happening right now in various places, but yeah, I'm sorry. How old did you say you were for that, roughly?
I must have been about 7 years old.
Okay. Yeah, my son is 7, and we were listening to the song preparing for the episode today in the car, and I was kind of like taking him through this. And when I mentioned the hunting trip at 5 or 6, like he also had a hard time processing that. I mean, he, like me, didn't grow up around anyone with hunters, so it's like a pretty foreign concept.
Yeah, it's weird, but so I did get some stats on hunting, because we're talking about hunting. So in the US, approximately 4.6% of the US population was issued a hunting license in the year 2020. I'm not good with US population numbers, but roughly 4.6% of the US population is how many people? Would you know that anywhere near off the top of your head?
Whole population? No. I mean, there's 11 million in Illinois. I know that much. So yeah.
Okay. It's a number. Gotcha. Hunting in the U.S. is a $27.1 billion industry. The vast majority of hunters in the U.S. are white men. Any surprise there?
No, I'm not shocked at all.
In Canada, according to Stats Canada in 2021, approximately 3% of households reported going hunting, which is down from 4% in 2019. So hunting is on the decline in Canada. And specific hunting stats are much harder to find for Canada than they are for the U.S. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
So I do, and this might be a curveball for you, but my story is that I have voluntarily, as an adult, gone hunting, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit. So again, I never knew anyone that hunted ever. No friends, no family. I knew some people that fished, but it wasn't really a part of my life either. So for me, I think, as I mentioned in the interview 10, 15 years ago, when I started trying to figure out what I was comfortable with eating, consuming, animal products that I was comfortable with buying, part of that journey got me to a point where I was sort of looking veganism in the face and kind of deciding my next steps. And one conclusion I came to is that I didn't feel comfortable ever eating an animal again unless I had gone through the process of hunting, which I'm sure this is something that Chris Hanna, at least from the Sander Katz era, would not approve of. But for me, it was actually pretty important. I just kind of felt like if I couldn't go through that, then I certainly had no right ever eating an animal product. And
I mean, that's a very, like, I guess, responsible and mature way to approach it.
I think so. I mean, or I don't know. For me, it was like the only path that kind of made sense. I've had vegetarian and vegan friends since then who couldn't really see the logic, and I understand that. But I think, well, first of all, let me just back it up. Like, I never owned a gun, never fired a gun, really. I had like one friend who had some guns out west, but it was pretty new at the time. So I had to learn how to fire a gun and get a hunting license and go through all of these steps, that I never thought I would do. Even to this day, I don't feel comfortable around guns. And I think I also had this idea of sort of the virtuous hunter of, okay, what if I could hunt a deer and that would be my only source of meat and I can completely cut out the middleman of factory farming. That was sort of the goal, but I wasn't really ready. So I ended up trying squirrel hunting as kind of like a precursor to that, to see if I could even handle this at all. And, I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I was talking to ecologists at the University of Wisconsin. I was talking to people from the DNR, although, I have mixed feelings on what I can trust, in terms of discussing some of these ethical issues with them. But I really wanted to, well, first find out, just from an ecological standpoint, deer, squirrel, they're overpopulated, but I wanted to know some more information. I found out only 25% of squirrels, survive past the year of one. And how that, fits into my equation of whether or not it's okay to kill them is a little bit unclear. But
sorry to interrupt, but that's a wild stat that I did not know.
Yeah. And when I was talking, I wish I remembered her name, but to this professor, she's like, that's just from natural causes, disease and predators, things like that.
Wow.
Honestly, I was imagining, I'm like, okay, if I kill this squirrel, am I killing some parent and that's going to kill all their kids? And, and so I also looked into the times of the season when if an adult was killed, it shouldn't, their kids should be grown. Was really trying to figure out if I could, justify this with myself. And so eventually I went out a handful of times, once or twice a year for a few years. I told myself I wouldn't ever take a shot unless I was positive. So most of the time I would just go out there for 10, 12 hours and either not see anything or see a squirrel and not do anything. But eventually I did. I shot and killed a squirrel. Did it twice, I think, total. Skinned it, ate it, did all that stuff. Took it home, ate it with my wife. And I know it seems very counterintuitive. It's unnecessarily cruel when I have access to all types of food, but it was important for me, and it was hard for me to do. I don't think it made it okay. I just had to go through that process. And since then, it's almost like a little bit like when, if you get caught smoking and your parents make you, smoke a pack of cigarettes or something. It was disturbing for me. And I think when I do eat meat, I think back to that whole experience, and in a way it's made it easier for me to severely reduce my intake of animal products. Like I said, I don't know, maybe 95% vegan. But it was very surreal. And this is central Illinois. So, I have like camo, and I'm going into like the diner afterwards, and there's all these legit lifetime hunters. And it was weird. I felt like I was like infiltrating undercover because I could just tell they were talking to me and like interacting me and like, oh, like, what were you out there hunting? Like this, I sort of became part of the little community, which is very uncomfortable for me. Whereas normally if I'm in rural America and I'm, just the way I present myself, I probably come off as an outsider. So it was really strange for me. But I think if someone's going to consume animal products, like the worst thing is to completely avoid the reality of the harm and the cost of life that accompanies it. And so again, this was sort of my way of reckoning with that. And by the way, I sort of stopped this practice. This was maybe just for like a few winters. And then I sort of felt like I didn't need to keep doing it but it was helpful in my journey.
I mean, I can't imagine like someone doing more like to figure out what was right. Like the amount of steps and research and everything that you went through. Like, I don't know anyone that could look at you and your like the decisions that you make and not like absolutely just fully respect everything that you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's a weird Venn diagram of, of habits and backgrounds. And I think I've always felt like a little strange the notion of, in certain circles of animal activism where like hunters are viewed as the absolute worst, and I do understand that. And of course, probably most hunters are, or many of them are probably awful people who just like the rite of passage. They just love to kill things. They don't think twice about it. But again, there's something about taking some responsibility that is something I can understand, I guess.
That it's like I've never held a gun in my life. I've never even been adjacent to an actual gun in my life, and that except for obviously ones that like law enforcement or whatever just happen to carry and they walk by you or whatever. But and I hope to continue not being around guns. But I understand that that's probably weird and very telling that I'm not American.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel the same way. I 100% feel that same way in terms of that discomfort. And it's strange, it's like I have kids. My daughter at the time was maybe 2 or 1, and the doctor would ask, like, do you have guns in the house? I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, oh, wait, I do. At least at the time I did. So it's very, very strange. And, to this day, I have mixed feelings about the whole experience.
And I would just like to issue a slight correction so no one calls me on being a hypocrite here. When I said I'd never been adjacent to a gun, obviously that is not counting the time that I spoke about literally 5 minutes earlier about me being in the boat.
You mean that time when you were adjacent to a gun?
Yeah. Other than that one time that I was adjacent, I was never adjacent. Other than that one time I was. You want to take us through the next line?
Do I ever? It's going to be a fun one. All right. So yeah, so an essential rite of passage for those consigned here with a dick. Of course, I mean, we could probably do a whole nother episode on the connection between obsession with guns and masculinity and the problems there.
I would love if someone interviewed Zoe about that, because Zoe would be the perfect person to talk about this, but I can't be the one who does it.
It did remind me, it's been a while since I've heard it, but I don't know if you ever heard the song Guns Yo by Sage Francis.
No.
Early 2000s. Pretty sure it sort of addresses this issue of just, masculine macho men being obsessed with guns, and how it's, of course, just a cover for some of their insecurities and just trying to conform to social norms. So it was Sage Francis, so I'm sure it had some appropriate and inappropriate jokes in there too, but maybe worth checking out.
Yeah, I'll definitely give that a listen. Yeah, we kind of talked about it in our in the previous line, but that the whole rite of passage becoming a man stuff is complete garbage. Get that out of here. All right, next line. Shot size 5 was recommended for a clean, efficient kill. So when I read this line, I'm like, shot size 5. I have no idea what this even means. So I'm like, I got to look up what shot size 5 even means. I was like, is that the size of the bullet, the size of the gun, the size? I have no idea. So according to sportsman.com or whatever website I was on earlier today, shot size 5 is ideal for hunting small ducks, pheasant, quail, grouse, doves, turkeys, woodcocks, squirrel, rabbit, and coyote. And shot size 5 is used with 10, 12, 16, 20, and 28 gauge shotguns. Did you know anything about this prior to what I just read?
I knew that shots relates to a shotgun. That much I knew. I put those two together. But no, I missed those details.
So if you remember when because you did have hunting experience, what type of shotgun is that?
Okay, so I hunted with a rifle, right? So shotgun shoots
Okay.
lots of little metal balls that spread out. And I think the idea is it's easier to hit something, but it's less precise. Whereas a rifle,
Gotcha.
single bullet. And there are different rules about like what guns you can or can't use, but I just like didn't even consider a shotgun for that reason, that it's somewhat indiscriminate, whether it's a small animal or a big animal. So I think it's more likely that you could just like wound it but not kill it, and it scampers away like, you know, fucked up for the rest of its life. So I never really experienced that.
Yeah, that's horrific. Oh.
Um,
Well, yeah. So I learned a lot about shotguns today, apparently, but still not enough to like really know anything about them, oddly enough.
right.
Next line.
Yeah. So they laughed as I cried and stroked his blood-soaked iridescent quills. So this one, even though I didn't have a hunting story from my childhood like you did, which luckily you were spared from direct violence, it sounds like. But my most like clear and maybe traumatic memory does involve animal harm. It was going to a summer camp. I don't exactly know how old I was. It's probably older than 5 or 6. I might have been like 9 or 10. And the short story is, I don't know if it was me or a group of friends, but we killed a frog. I think we threw it or stepped on it. I don't remember the details, but it was very much like a group of boys unmonitored by responsible adults. I know it wasn't my idea, but seeing the aftermath of that really, to this day, haunts me. I don't even think this is related. I mean, who knows, like if that seed was planted for my eating habits, but that was the first time in my life that I just, to my core, was like, this is so wrong. And it's interesting because I also remember just the other boys laughing. And it's funny that, you know, it's not funny, but Chris mentions that in the first line, or right here in this line, of the adults in the room, you know, laughing. I don't know if I showed remorse or if I cried or had emotion. I probably was like fighting to keep it in, but that's probably my worst memory. And so as soon as I heard the song the first time, that's kind of what came to mind for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's. I have a story about this too, but it's horrific. So I'll try and be as brief as possible. So from the time I was 18 until 23, I spent my summers working at a city's public works department. And one part of my job was picking up roadkill, which sucked. But so public works department is like everyone, like the toxic masculinity that runs through a 1990s public works department is off the charts. One day I remember one of the wackier kind of like eccentric public workers walked up and just like soccer kicked a pigeon, like that was in like the bay. And I remember all of the public were other like workers there, like everyone was laughing. They thought it was hilarious. I'm like, this pigeon is not dead. And I'm like, this is awful what's happening here. And but like you have 30 to 40 people all think it's hilarious, and I was like the only person there. Sorry, there was one other person there that wound up actually going and picking up the pigeon and trying to help it, but it was not helpable. But that this is the same place of work that the two people were given goalie hockey sticks and told to go in the shed and start swinging at pigeons when they fly down. So, yeah, it was not. Those days were not fun to be around.
Yeah. And, it's not fun to share this. We're only, I don't know, half an hour into this discussion, and there's already a lot of terror and trauma for animals, probably for anyone who's exposed to that as well. We know the same thing about people who work in factory farms can be traumatized from that as well. And, it sucks. It sucks big time. But I think it's important to share them because probably I'm guessing a lot of people listening to this podcast have some version of this that they were either a part of or near to. And, I'm hoping, having two kids, that sort of blanket acceptance of abuse is starting to diminish. But I worry about that for my kids too. I hope that's changing with time, but it's not, immediately clear.
Yeah, and like I said, for those of you who are listening, you can bow out at any minute now, and we will not hold it against you. Yeah. Next line. Don't recall just how I got there to the hatchery, I mean. So here we're changing. It's now, we've left one story and now we're going into another story.
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah, sorry.
Am I correct? I don't know how much it truly matters for the listener, but did Chris not say in an interview that both of these were like special stories that happened to him? They were not.
Yeah, there's stories that happened to him. I watched his he talked about it on his Q interview with Tom Power.
Yeah. So yeah, stumbled through the bush on a field trip, and there it stood in front of me. I stooped down upon the concrete pad to verify what I was seeing, the aftermath of stomping boots upon hundreds of tiny, helpless beings. So yeah, what was your reaction to hearing this the first time? Are there things like hatcheries or chicken houses that you've seen either growing up or where you live now?
So I've very fortunately not been exposed to that unless it was whether I was like seeking it out on my own. So yeah, I count myself very fortunate. How about you?
Yeah, nothing directly, but we have family on the east side of the states that we often drive to. We just drive from Chicago over there, and once we get past Pennsylvania, there are quite a few of those. I don't know if they're actually called, but those long chicken row houses. And talk to my kids about them. Of course, windowless, so they're not the hatcheries, but they're just ominous. Like once you know what happens in there, it's just driving by them kind of chills your spine a little bit. And it's just sort of a form and function situation when you see these buildings. You can just tell, even without seeing the footage, that this is not right. This is not a place where anything can thrive. And then you think about the extremely vast, unimaginably large quantity of animals that live and die in these structures. Yeah, it's spooky.
Yeah, I did probably, I want to say like 13 years ago, I did a freelance job working at World Animal Protection, and I edited, like, they had a campaign that they were launching to try and get chicken farmers who used battery cages to abandon battery cages and switch to free range farming. So I did all the video editing for all of like the campaign and all the videos that went with it. So I got to like hear lots of farmers' stories and firsthand accounts from farmers who had made the switch and talking about the benefits they experienced switching and talking about how the battery cages were the antiquated way, and that there was no reason to fear the switch, basically.
And we'll probably get into later that free range can mean a lot of things. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's perhaps only a small step, but it's still a step. That's for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, and a step in the right direction is still a step in the right direction, right? So again, I have a stat here about not a hatchery specifically, but about animals. So in Canada, as of today, well, this was this morning when I did this, which was about 9:30 this morning. We had 984,854,550 animals had been killed for food as of 9:30 this morning in Canada. And for the US, this one was extremely difficult to get because if you've ever been on like the animal, I think I can't remember the exact website, but it's like animaldeaths.org or something like that. They have like an actual counter that live goes for the animals killed this year, and for the US one, it was changing so fast. I had to like focus 3 times to get a number, but because by the time I got to the 100,000s, the 100 one was just moving so fast. It was like a stopwatch. I couldn't even look at it long enough to write down the number. Like that's how staggering it is. And the number is 9 trillion 781,884,696 as of 9:30 this morning, which we're March 6th. That just let that sink in to everyone. March 6th. Like if we don't have the ability to even process that large of a number. So it just seems unrealistic. So it's so easy to disassociate with it because we can't even process something that large.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hello, despair and booze fueled rage. How do you do, my gilded cage? Love the rhyme in that line, by the way.
Yeah, rhyming is like a rare treat for propaganda lyrics.
Like that came in and that gets you real good. Rage and cage. Why not? He took the Smashing Pumpkins school of rhyming.
So I have a question for you because, yeah, gilded cage, the idea of looks like you're living something luxurious, but in reality, there's major restrictions on joy or freedom. But when you read this, do you read this as the factory worker who is there, the booze fueled rage being from their perspective, kind of, inflicting their own personal trauma onto these animals? Or do you read this as Chris or the listener being enraged and relying on substances to manage that, or something else?
You know what? I'd actually never. I always just assumed it was Chris's feelings and experience, but I'd never even thought of it because it absolutely does apply to a factory farm worker. Like you got to imagine. I mean, we'll probably discuss it later, but like the people that are needing that work on like the kill floor in the slaughterhouses, I feel like that's an understatement for what they go through.
Yeah. It's also interesting because, we've got the Gilded Cage reference here, but then of course, same album that has Zoochosis. So there's discussion of cage and enclosures that come up there in a very different context, but I'm wondering if that's like an intentional connection or just
Oh, interesting. Well, Chris, if you're listening, you're not. It's fine.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, it's even referring to, even using the term gilded cage it's hilarious because, when at the time, like even in the video that I was making, the farmers, even well, as we'll discuss later, the free range is still literally 10,000 birds packed into a building so small that it should have like 300 to be spacious enough, right? So like the way that humans deem what's acceptable for others is just wild. to me.
Right. Yeah. Of course, with these small steps, which we're trying to reward, there's immediately an opportunity for the same market that's based completely in capitalism and profit to take those small wins and spin it to again put like another veil of secrecy over what's really happening, right? So you're mentioning there's these absolutely overcrowded houses, which still have no windows in most cases. And sometimes they'll have a little side door with this tiny area that a few can go out in at a time, but not all of them at the time. And, it's tricky. It's like buying free range eggs is better than nothing, but it also, may placate another generation of consumers who are like, oh, but I buy free range, and it's this whole conversation is tricky. Like, I really try to be careful about casting any judgments, including on myself for my, things I'm not proud of anymore in this category. But it does seem like a lot of these terms, same thing with like organic milk, really are still not very regulated, or people understood what it takes to get that term on the packaging. I think they'd be surprised at how minimal the steps are in terms of, reducing harm.
Oh, absolutely. And, 15 years ago, me would have done this episode very differently than current me is doing it. I was definitely more annoying back then, like when you first take the leap and you become vegan. I was everything I dislike about it back then, you know what I mean? And as you get older and it's just not a big deal anymore.
And you're
And
art now.
and like before, like it was very judgy about everyone else's choices. And now it's like, I'm happy to talk to you about something if you want, but I'm not going to sit here and berate you for your choices,
So this kind of is a shifting point in the song, right? You're kind of moving away from the personal story and then moving into these stanzas, referring to a handful of animals as stupid, of course, sarcastically so. So I don't know, maybe we can talk about the individual lines, in case there's anything you want to share. And then after that, we can talk about this idea of referring to all of them as stupid and kind of that use of language in the song.
For sure.
So I'll start with stupid chick on the conveyor belt, staring at her severed foot. So I think, well, the conveyor belt, I'm assuming, is referring to the belt that male chicks are often find themselves on, with a poor fate at the end of that. There was a couple of surveys I looked at, and of all of the factory farming, animal welfare instances, I think the one that most Americans were the least aware of was the fact that in the egg laying industry, all male chicks are culled or killed. For those who don't know, the idea being that we have now bred chickens for meat to have these abnormally large breasts, and essentially the male chicks that come from the egg laying variety are not sufficiently profitable. So basically, shortly after they're born and they can be sexed as male, they're killed as quickly as possible. And it's interesting because, if you're vegetarian, you probably eat eggs, but unfortunately, that's also where some of the greatest amount of harm occurs. We're talking 350 million chicks a year are culled in the egg industry. And globally, you were mentioning that moving, we've got, that's about 200 per second globally. And so not only are they killed, but they don't provide any meat or sustenance. Not that that's justification in the first place, but this is something from the last few decades. There used to be that the male chicks would be, still saved for food, but because we must have our super over the top, gigantic alien chickens, they're just not profitable to keep.
It's wild. Like it's hard to even comprehend that the volume, like 200 a second, is so crazy. I had some stuff talking about the different methods that chicks are killed, but I'm not going to say that because that's too much of a bummer. If you want to learn about it, just look it up. Like,
I will say are you familiar with like the in ovo sexing work that's happening, at least in some countries in Europe and a few other places?
learned a lot about it today, actually.
Okay. So first of all, I think we're going to try, for those who are still here, try and end with some hope at the end of this.
It's just Greg at editing it. He's the only person that's even going to hear this at this point.
Well, let me sprinkle in a little bit of hope. So, yeah, there is a process now. It's actually been around for 10 or 15 years where essentially you can sex the individual inside the egg, and essentially it's like a chicken abortion that you can commit. So the idea is, if you can determine that the embryo is a male, you can dispatch of the egg long before they're born, and in theory can feel pain or harm. I'm sure that's still a debated issue as well, but it prevents them hatching and being killed a couple days into their life. So there are a lot of countries that are doing this now. I believe at least France and Germany a couple of years ago banned chicken culling completely. And of course, like magically, once it became law, the industry found a way to handle it. All right. And this is one of their solutions. So, it does go to show that if there's city or state or national legislation, that it can lead, people will find solutions to continue to make money. So there's some promise there, because that could lead to the reduction of hundreds of millions of these male chicks from being born just to be killed.
I'm curious as to obviously it's likely more expensive than using the grinder method that most use. But I'm just wondering, like, for it to become a widespread thing in North America, it's likely going to have the only thing people here care about is money. So I'm wondering what needs to happen, like how far out of reach it is for it to be implemented like more widely versus just the people that are mandated that they have to use it, basically.
So at risk of spreading unintentional misinformation here, I do remember reading that I think once the technology is set up, it's actually only like a couple cents per egg, essentially. I believe, apologies if I'm wrong, I think the main cost is just setting up the technology in the first place. Like, I remember seeing a map of like specific areas across Europe, and there's only maybe a couple dozen that like were able to do this process. So I don't know if it's like a full lab that needs to be built. I'm not sure, but I think once the infrastructure is there, it's a very cheap process, from what I understand.
Yeah, I guess it's probably all about the initial investment, right? Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to get even worse. Sorry. Stupid pig despairing at the sight of his companion on a hook.
Hey, you want to start with this one? I feel like we both need a break, but
oh my God. Like, this line sucks. It sucks to hear. Like, and we're going to talk about the music after, but man, Chris sings this line beautifully, but man, is it a bummer of a line. It's very visual. And like, I love pigs. Like, in 2011, I did some time volunteering at Best Friends Animal Society in Utah. And I worked exclusively with the pigs while I was there. And like, I prepared their food, did the cleaning, and then they had two of the more, I can't remember what type of pigs they are, but they were like like agile pigs. They were really fast. And they would we'd take them and they could run the dog agility course, like through the hoops, everything. And it was awesome. They were named Nick and Holly. I have a picture. I'll toss it on the Discord for anyone listening. But yeah, so I'm a huge pig guy. I love pigs. Mentioning
the dog course, this has come up quite a bit. This rough, of course, like there are multiple intelligences across different species, but the comparison between pigs and dogs has come up a lot. That they're widely believed to be as, if not more, intelligence in a number of factors than dogs. So I know, if you're interested, I found Lori Marino is a neuroscientist who works a lot with dolphins and whales, but also has published a few dozen peer-reviewed papers specifically on pig intelligence. And there's just paper after paper confirming how social they are, that they're playful with toys. They've outperformed dogs in certain intelligence tests, but they also can predict situations in the future. So, for example, there was a study where there were two crates and a pig. One of them, once it went in that crate, it was locked in that crate for 30 minutes. And then the other one, it was locked in the crate for 240 minutes. And they very quickly learned to always go in the 30-minute crate. And that really, of course, implies that they can sense harm over time as well, which is another sign of, emotional intelligence. And they also can demonstrate what's called emotional contagion. So the idea that if certain emotions are being expressed around them, they will mimic that both through, vocalizations and behaviors. And it's potentially like a precursor to empathy, essentially. So this idea of pigs having a similar intelligence to dogs, or also the comparison has been made of they're about equivalent to a 4-year-old human. They've outperformed 3-year-olds on some of these tests. It's just another way to frame this. I mean, personally, I don't even think it should matter if an animal is or is not intelligent. A lot of times we value intelligent animals, or even more so cute animals, over ones that are not cute. But I think it does help, to imagine these situations that are really hard, and imagine, like, would you ever consider doing this to a dog? And most people probably wouldn't. With chickens, like, would you imagine doing this to a bunch of bunnies? Like, most people probably wouldn't. So, that psychological piece about which animals we kind of naturally revere and get that dopamine rush when we see, big cute eyes or fluffy ears. It's natural, but it's also a barrier that kind of prevents us from appreciating all animals and, respecting their right to exhibit natural behaviors and have a harm-free life.
When you talking about everything you talked about here with Lauren Marino, it actually reminded me. I should have thought of it earlier, and I can't believe I didn't. But a really good other guest to talk to for this episode would have been they live less than 30 minutes from me. But do you remember Esther the Wonder Pig?
It sounds familiar.
She was like a famous internet pig.
Okay.
Anyways, like her dads both, they live like 30 minutes from me. I could have, and they're like super famous. So I should have, and they love this. Their mission is to like spread awareness about this right now. So they absolutely would have done this show. I'm an idiot. Anyways.
We'll put the link at the top of the show notes or something. All right. So, this sort of last highlighted animal here is the cow. You ever see that stupid cow chasing the truck that drove off with her calf? This is
I cried. That's what happens when I said that. I cried.
Yeah, this is actually, I'm glad you said that, because from the entire Propaganda catalog, there've only been 2 songs that have like really made me cry, and this was one of them. I think the first listen, like Sage said, I didn't fully, I wasn't listening to lyrics. I was so excited about the music. But once the second time when I listened, more carefully, same thing. It was just a moment where the tears were flowing. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I could just relate to that sentiment.
Oh no, it's I mean, everyone like these videos, they're all like, I don't know anyone who hasn't seen this video on the internet at some point, right? Like, and it's hard, and it's just heartbreaking. Like, I'm a huge cow guy. Cows are my favorite animal. I love cows so much. Like, my couch in the living room has a cow slipcover on it. I have framed pictures of cows on the wall in my living room. I have my Highland cow back there. I did some work at in 2014. I did some work at Gentle Barn in LA, and I spent all my free time there, just literally just hugging cows. Yeah. So, anyways, this line really breaks my heart. Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to add to this line?
Not in particular. I think all decisions that we make about what we buy, I mean, there's a hidden cost, and it's interesting with issues surrounding factory farming and all these different processes. It's not that hidden. I mean, of course, the companies are working really hard for us to avoid thinking about that. But I think what's so shocking about not just this cow situation, but really all of these instances is there's so much evidence. It's, people, of course, don't ever say that they support this stuff. I mean, most people aren't like, I'm okay with these things. They just are able to kind of shut that off from their mind, I think, for the most part. And it's always been fascinating to me, but also disturbing that there's such a contrast to how we market and view and think about animals in other aspects of our life. And, again, anyone who has kids knows that, I don't know, 40% of all kid merchandise is animal related, and a bunch of that is farm animal related. And so, you hear about the milk carton that has the happy farm, but I think it's beyond that. I think there's just this illusion that we live in harmony with animals and we have an understanding with each other. And, people have reactions. Like in movies, they could see a person, a fictional situation, a character getting killed, a human, and most people don't think twice. If they see an animal, most people have like a more visceral reaction, if like a dog gets killed in a movie. So it's really hard for me to understand what psychological tricks have been played on us by the industry, where most people are 100% on board with the idea of reducing harm, but we just can't seem to make that connection in our practice, and have no problem kind of continuing this facade that we have a healthy relationship with them, which is extremely rare. So
Did in Chicago on the public transit, did you take public transit in Chicago between the years 2011 and 2017?
I'm sure I did. Yeah.
Oddly enough, I think I did as well. But so in Toronto, we had for stretches during that period of years, we had the Be Veg campaign, the Why Love One Eat Another campaign, ads like all over Subway. Did you guys have those in like the subway stations there?
I don't remember that particular campaign. So if so, I must have missed it.
Yeah, because they had like a picture of a pig and then like a dog side by side, and they'd like a whole series of like different ads like that were all over the subway and billboards in Toronto. And I know they were in some American cities as well. I just don't remember which ones. It was a wonderful campaign. It was really cool to see that stuff just everywhere, because it was like having an animal activism campaign that's not built around like extreme images was refreshing. Next line.
Yeah. So stupid lower order, always good for a good laugh. This is one circling back to the hunting incident, right? With the men in the group laughing. But also, yeah, just this idea that it's accepted that animals are beneath us, that they're not valued in the same way that humans are. I've never really liked the hypotheticals about, like, well, wouldn't you protect a human before an animal, that sort of thing. I think there's like always going to be a natural tendency to protect your own, like that's some instinct. But generally speaking, I think most people do agree, consciously or subconsciously, that animals are beneath as opposed to adjacent to human animals or even above human animals.
Yeah, circling back what you said earlier about the animals being in like children's stuff. You'd mentioned it earlier, but it reminded me of when I was a kid. So like I was maybe like 4 years old or 5 years old, kind of around then, up until the time I was like 8 or 9, because I had younger brothers. But I remember watching. God, it's been so long. I'm bad with the different ones, but I believe it was the Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah.
Was Porky Pig on the Bugs Bunny universe, or was he somewhere else?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh God. Anyways, I remember growing up that whenever we would eat pork chops, my parents would refer to them as Porky Pig chops, basically. And it took me a while to like legitimately put it together, but I remember knowing that they did it so that I knew specifically which animal that it was coming from, because of like I'd be able to relate it to it. And I remember going over to a friend's house and they asked what I had for dinner last night. And I was like, oh, what did you have for dinner? I was like, I didn't know. I was too young to know that it was called pork chops. I thought because I thought the pork was part of the name of Porky Pig. I remember when I said, oh, we had pig chops. And I remember the way they looked at me. And I felt like, oh man, I said something wrong.
Yeah.
I felt like an idiot in that moment. It was awful. But anyways, thinking back, I'm like, man, I can't believe they used to call them Porky Pig chops.
I mean, it's the same thing with like, barbecue spots that make all kinds of pig pork puns, in their names or whatever. I will say this idea of the assumption that humans view animals as less than, it's not always the case. And that's not just in the vegan communities. I actually, thinking about this episode, I hopped over to Greg's other podcast, shout out Classical Ideas podcast. And I listened to one of the episodes about Jainism, where he interviewed, I believe it was an American Jain. And, there are a lot of cultures where it's integral to respect animals as equal and to not create any harm. And of course, in no way am I even close to an expert, let alone knowledgeable about Jainism. But, you've heard examples like always wearing a mask just to make sure that not even like an insect or a bug would accidentally be inhaled, or sweeping the sidewalk to make sure that a bug would never be stepped on. So it's inspiring to know that there are, religions and cultures out there who have been for a very long time. We're talking thousands of years, and continue to value them as, an equal or higher order.
Do you have Loving Hut restaurants out there?
Say what now? Loving Hut?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, maybe that's only a California thing. I thought they were outside of California too. Oh, it's just a chain of restaurants that are everyone listening, I do not remember the name, but it's all of a chain of vegan restaurants that are connected to a specific religion thing. And I can't tell you which one, but so we have one in Toronto called Green Earth, and then there's one, I can't remember what the one in Brampton is called, but then there's a number of Loving Huts all over California. And when I lived in California, they had the best green cake, like a dessert, green cake for dessert. It was awesome. I can't remember what fruit it was, but it was like a different fruit that made the cake green.
Oh, nice.
But I can't remember specifically which one it was. Okay. Do you have anything else to add for that one, or do you want to move to the next line?
No, we can keep going.
Okay. Debarked, declawed, defanged, dehorned, wings clipped, toes cut, branded, teeth pulled. This is a horrific line. Everything in this line is bad. And I would go through, if people out there are getting their dog debarked, that is horrific. Do not get your dog debarked. You're not going to have your child devoiced. Don't have your dog debarked. Simple.
I mean, every single one of these procedures, the purpose is to just, serve human interest. That's the worst.
I know when you adopt a cat from the Humane Society, they make you sign a contract saying you won't declaw them, which, I mean, there's obviously no way that anyone can follow up on that, but it's something.
So, the song, it starts with this personal narrative, and then it kind of zooms out a little bit with the stupid animal lines. And here we have this sort of really terrible climax. And then we get to our last line: farewell, despair, and booze fueled rage. How do you do, soon to be emptied cage? So I guess I'm going to bring it back to, do you again view this as Chris just kind of summarizing the whole experience and waiting for the animal to perish?
If I'm going to reference my vague memory of Chris's Q interview with Tom Power asks him, how do you deal with all this? And Chris's answer was, drink. So probably this is again, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's also what I wasn't expecting talking about all this is, we'll get to the music soon, but of course there's this major contrast between the tone of the music and the tone of the lyrics. And
Yeah.
going through these line by line in like a sonic vacuum, essentially, just it's really hitting me now, even though I've heard the song, hundreds of times, just how brutal all of this is. There's still about 60% of US chickens are in battery cages their whole life, no bigger than a sheet of paper.
Oh,
And
if anyone's listening, the book Eating Animals has a very good diagram on the inside of the book at how much space that one of these chickens has to live in their entire life. So the book is called Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer.
yes, and I recently kind of like was curious, sort of, checking up on that particular statistic. And you can find like square inch measurements on like, the USDA and FDA website. So it's out there. We still have 70% of pigs that when they're pregnant are in gestation crates. So that's right. They call it a crate, but it's a 2 foot wide cage essentially where they can't turn around. And they're like that, day and night. So there's still widespread cruelty happening all the time. But I do think, that despair, that booze fueled rage, like I hope it can be countered with some optimism. I know we mentioned, a couple instances where there's progress. This issue of 60% of chickens being in these battery cages is still horrific, but this is a major, major improvement from even 15 years ago. So because of state bans, so for example, in 2010, only 4% of chickens in the US were certified cage free, which again, we still know is problematic. By 2023, 38% were certified cage free. And so that is a massive, massive jump. And that's almost exclusively because a handful of states basically banned the practice. And, we already mentioned Germany and France banning chick culling. So one thing I like to think about is for people, myself included, who are struggling to completely change or even, slightly change their eating habits, there's other ways that you can help, right? You can be an activist supporting legislation. You can throw your money at places like Legal Impact for Chickens, who are working to sue factory farms, because, generally speaking, there's been a lot of progress. And I know in the vegan world in general, I think you mentioned the more militant approach of kind of all or nothing is still important, but I think there are a lot more easier points of entry to a vegan lifestyle. I know there's I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it like the veganuary?
Veganuary, yeah. I guess that's veganuary.
Oh, it's like Be Vegan for January, and there were 700,000 people who signed up a couple of years ago for that, or Meatless Mondays. Just finding small ways to change. For me, these were the kinds of measures that over a handful of years eventually led to a major change in my habit. I also thought I'd share, by the way, I found some rankings on countries that are like the most vegan. I'm sure the numbers aren't perfect. I was going to see if you want to guess number one, but are you looking at my show notes right now?
Yeah, I've got the show notes here. So I unfortunately.
Oh, why don't you guess number one? I have a feeling you're
number one, if I had to guess, I would say India.
You are absolutely right. And actually, Mexico is up there too. So they're somewhere around 9% vegan.
Coincidentally, man, I eat a lot of Indian Mexican food.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something, right? 1 in 10 people. Comparatively, the US is at most 1.5% vegan, and that's probably a major exaggeration. After Mexico and India, we had Israel at 5%. And then after that, Canada at 4.6%. So you all are up there on the vegan scale. Congratulations.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about the lyrics?
So maybe not about the lyrics, but this gave me a fun, something that we could maybe end the lyrics on a positive note, if you will. So Matt here turned me on to an app for my iPad called Paprika. And since then, Matt and I have exchanged some vegan recipes together. So I thought maybe for this part, we could each share our favorite vegan recipe or vegan thing that we make.
Sure, sounds good.
I will let you
Although,
go first.
my honest favorite's a little boring, but they're so good. Well, I'm in Chicago, so we're a very big taco city. I mean, in terms of the tortilla market, there's like 20 different companies in Chicago. The best is El Milagro, for those who are curious. So I'm going to go with there's a sweet potato and black bean taco recipe that is my absolute favorite. Everyone that I know who's tried this particular recipe loves them, including people who never eat anything vegan or vegetarian intentionally. So I'll definitely link to that. I mean, I've got the paprika recipe, but I also think I have the original website, and I'll add my additional kind of Chicago style notes to that. But yeah, sweet potato, black bean tacos with all the fixings on top. That's my number one.
Oh, that's awesome. And slight sidebar before I give mine. Do you eat at vegan restaurants?
Yes, there are only a handful of like truly vegan restaurants, and some of them are like very fancy and expensive.
Chicago Diner, though, right?
Chicago Diner, yes, forever. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's like hearty. You've been there before, right?
I've been there, no joke, probably 25 times.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, that's like the Chicago staple. It's been there for decades. Like greasy comfort food. But
I had a hero there once that was just phenomenal.
Yes. They've been on it and have been going strong ever since. But yeah, there are also just a bunch of restaurants that are just vegan friendly that have really solid vegan entrees that are not just like fries, So
do you have a Penelope's Vegan Taquerita in Chicago? That's there, right? Oh, maybe that's in LA. I'm mixing them up. If you had to name your top 3 vegan restaurants that you've ever eaten at in your life.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with vegan friendly again.
Okay. Yeah.
So one is called Handlebar. It's another really casual place, partially because they're close to me and they have like awesome decor. But they've also been around for a really long time. My number 2 might be Chicago Diner, actually. Again, just kind of like the history of it. It's just super comforting, like on a cold winter day. You just like go there and it just kind of warms your soul.
And the milkshake's top notch.
Oh, yes, definitely. And then I'd say number 3, there's a spot near us called Giant. This is a fancy restaurant, and they do serve meat dishes there, but all of their vegetable base. So these are kind of more advertised as like sides, but they're so delicious and special and cared for. All of their vegan vegetable dishes really work as mains too. And every time I go there, that's just my favorite thing for sure. So I'm gonna go with Giant as my 3rd.
That's awesome. I love that 2 vegan friendly places are on your list. That's awesome. My thing that I make is I'm gonna go with I'm very big into cooking. I've shared a lot of my like meals kind of on the Discord. We have a cooking channel. So my one that I'm gonna share is I do like a tofu salmon steak kind of thing. So basically it's you take like a block of tofu, you cut it in half, and then each square that you get out of it, you do like a cross cut so you cut it one way diagonal, then you flip it and do the other way diagonal, so it like kind of like accordion-y on the inside, and then you toss it, and you like there's a sauce that I make that I marinate it in. I do a 24-hour marinade, and then it comes out of there, and then I cornstarch up the outside, and then I deep fry each side of it so it's nice and crispy on the outside, and then that is served on top of a plate of achiote Mexican rice with a topping of mango salsa on top.
Yeah, if you want to make that and just like throw it in a manila envelope and send it to me, that would be.
I love it. And then my 3 favorite vegan restaurants I've eaten at. Number 1 would be a restaurant in Toronto called La Bartola. It's I believe a Michelin-starred vegan restaurant, a Mexican restaurant. And Zoe and I ate there, oh God, whenever the last time Ghost played Toronto was, because we went to that before the Ghost show. And It was very pricey, but man, the the rose hibiscus like tacos, and oh man, it was seriously unbelievable. Zoe had a chocolate brownie with popcorn coulis on top. It was
Wait,
wild.
what's a coulis? What's a popcorn?
Yeah, like it's like a popcorn sauce that you pour on top of a chocolate brownie. Like it was insane. Number two would be Crossroads Kitchen in LA, which is like a just super famous, popular vegan restaurant. And then third is Evolution Fast Food in San Diego. When I lived in San Diego, they have a buffalo chicken, vegan buffalo chicken sandwich that is, I've never had one that's even come close to rivaling their like just greasy burger sandwich. It is by far the best. If I had to pick a four, Chicago Diner. Awesome. Is there a place where you get vegan Chicago dogs there?
A lot of places that offer Chicago dogs will now do a vegan one. So even there's like a giant chain like Portillo's. I don't know if that's like a thing that yeah, but like you can get a vegan dog. Like they started that like 3 years ago. And for those who haven't had a Chicago dog, the 96% of what you're eating is just all the bullshit on top. So it really translates well. We like make them at home all the time too. But I'd say, I don't know, like maybe 1 in 3 like restaurants, where sit down restaurants that serve hot dogs will have a vegan option, I would say.
Oh, that's awesome. Now I'm gonna have to have one next time I come back. So every time I've been to Chicago, I haven't been able to find one. But because we've been Zoe and I have been going to Tied Down in Detroit every year, and I'm just crushing vegan coney dogs.
Yeah, where the White Sox play too, Rate Field, they also have them there, which is nice.
I've been to both a White Sox and a Cubs game. The Cubs game was much more fun.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. I'm like a White Sox fan, but it's all good.
I had way better seats for the White Sox. I sat like 3 rows up from the third baseline, and at the Cubs game, I was in the bleachers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even when the Sox are like in first place or like in the ranks of the playoff, it doesn't matter. You can just like walk right on down.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have a ticket. I just walked up and I was like, I'll take the cheap one. And the person at the gate was like, how about I just give you this one for that price? I was like, okay.
Okay, so one last thing before we transition to the music, because I also found like we were kind of looking ahead to the future. I did find this one thing I really wanted to share with you. I was going to text you a picture, but I forgot. Have you heard? I don't know if this is like famous in the vegan community, but have you heard of a publication called Our Dumb Animals?
No.
Okay, so somehow when I was like, reading about the song, I'm sure the stupid title had something to do with it. I found this publication that apparently in some form made it to like, I think the 1960s, but it was first published in the 1860s in Massachusetts. And the title Our Dumb Animals, from what I understand, dumb was referring to the fact that animals don't have the capacity to speak. I guess that was like an appropriate term for that. And this is sort of like pretty early American animal advocacy. And apparently I was surprised to hear this, the first issue that they published, they gave out 200,000 copies in like 1860s Boston. And for whatever reason, it said it was like thousands of cops helped pass them out. So it was a big deal at the time. Their motto was, "We speak for those who cannot speak for themselves." And I was just kind of reading through like every month when they released one, there were just kind of stories like reporting, basically exposing people who were abusing animals and calling them out. There were also like strange poems for kids about animal advocacy. But I took one quote, since it's March, I found one from March 1868. And one little excerpt said, "There are crimes such as keeping calves from their mothers for days and letting the cattle go unmilked, that their bags may look full, together with the horrible cruelties in the transportation of animals, fearful alike to the animals and all who eat their flesh. We must believe that there is a large class of offenses. The sins of ignorance and thoughtlessness must be dispatched." So I just really appreciated that, knowing, 150 years ago, there were people out in the streets kind of telling the same stories that we're hearing now. And hopefully that just continues in 150 years from now.
And that was like, if you think of like 150 years ago, factory farming wasn't anywhere near what it is now. Like, it is way more horrific now.
Yes. Okay, that was my last tidbit. I just wanted to share that
Yeah, can you text that to me though? I'd love to see that.
for sure.
Okay, let's talk about the music. This is an interesting propaganda song music wise, and I think, I mean, I personally, I love how the music and, like we talked about it, and the words, just kind of the juxtaposition between the two, because the music is beautiful and it's so like peaceful, and the lyrics are anything but. So I like how that was done. Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. All the clean guitar, it's very dreamy. Like I feel like this is definitely a Todd centric song. During the verse, there's repeating parts, but there's very kind of jazzy runs up and down the bass, where that clean kind of major chord feel for the first part of the song really feels very much like a dream or a flashback. And of course, it progresses. It's also interesting. The first chunk of the song, which has that almost, I don't know, like hair metal vibe to it. I was curious if that was just for fun, or if it almost, I could see it being like the type of music that some of these hunters might love. Again, that kind of like a little bit cheesier 80s, 90s, like glam rock metal stuff too. So it starts with that kind of dissonant over the top rock, and then all of a sudden comes right back down to the dreamy clean stuff.
He's got unbelievable clean guitar tone.
Oh yeah.
It sounds so smooth. I love it. And then one thing I did want to highlight lyrically, I mean, not, but the way when the song changes and his vocal delivery of "stupid chick on the conveyor belt staring at her severed foot," to me, the delivery of that line is what is like the cherry on top in the song on how that happens. Yeah, it's like I listened to this song today alone probably 20 times today. So, and just every time I listen to it, just that line, like it doesn't get old. Like every time you listen to it, it just hits you. And so well done.
Yeah, and it's like certainly a song that if someone, so like Sage, who didn't really have a background listening to propaganda, like if this was your first song, it would be a really strange entry point into their music. There's bits and pieces that are reminiscent of other songs on that album, I would say, but there's very few songs that kind of sound like that. Even, other songs that have clean guitar, they're maybe more aggressive or they're more atmospheric with some of the stuff that like B would do, or like, the verse of Coach's Corner. But this one, like you said, that really sweet, gentle tone that's kind of doubled. It seems like it was an intentional choice that really followed the theme in the lyrics.
Yeah, it's musically a very different, but like insanely well pulled off, and I think this song overall and musically, lyrically, everything is a standout point in their entire catalog for me, at least.
Yeah, totally agree.
Do you have anything else you want to add to the music, or should I go to the Discord comments?
No, we've got some talented reviewers over in the Discords. Let's hear what they have to say.
So first we have a Paradox said, "What a great sad song." I agree.
Yeah.
You want to do the next one? Do you have it open?
I do. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go with Mr. Afternoon. I'm not going to use a voice though. I'm just going to read it verbatim. I like the contrast of the intro and the clean tone. Guess it wouldn't be appropriate to call it buttery. Silken? It's nice. When it came out, it was such a striking departure tonally, but it really ensures that the lyrics are clear. Not a banger, but that makes the message more impactful. I like that they experiment with style, but for me, it's usually a skip. 3 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand skipping it, if sometimes you just don't want to be super bummed out, I get it. Next up, Danik. I don't know if I should do my Danik impression. I've got a great Danik, and I'm not going to do it. Um, I love that it's a rare propaganda song with a prominent, clean guitars. The straightforward storytelling of the first verse is so attention grabbing. I saw them play this at the Regent Theater in downtown LA in 2017, and while I don't think the crowd was too into it, I really enjoyed the performance.
I know I've seen them play this live, but and I think I remember the exact same thing of the energy coming down. And I am curious if it's like the bummer lyrics or just people not into like it rocking at like at a lower level. But yeah, I have a similar memory. Okay, last one from Emil. My favorite thing about Lower Order is when that one dude was interviewing Chris about it, and I think he acknowledges the lyrics or something, then asks Chris how old he was, and Chris says about 5 or 6. Like, it's such a funny moment. It was on cue with Tom Power, episode available to see on YouTube.
So I watched that today I watched it again today after Emil had said that. And to be clear, the lyric was never referenced. The song was referenced. And then Tom Power said, because Chris he wasn't really being talkative at that point, and he asked him the question to try and get Chris to actually elaborate more and actually talk about it. So that's and to give the listeners more context, because everyone that knows Propaganda knows that it happened at 5 or 6 years old because we all listened to the song. But Q is a very, very popular show, like a national institution in Canada. So I want to say, upwards of 95% or higher of the listening audience of Q probably had never heard Propaganda before.
All right, that's our last one, right?
That's our last one. So if you had to give this song an overall number out of 5.
Okay, so this is on the Propaganda scale, right?
On the Propaganda scale, yeah.
I'll go with funky bean burgers. I believe Chris prefers those over the new fancy Impossible burgers. So I'll go with 4 out of 5 funky bean burgers. I think this one is, for me, it's one that I never skip. And I can enjoy it, I think, independently musically, but also it's a song that is always kind of in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about any of these choices that I make, and whether I agree with the approach of exposing the listener to so much violence or not. It certainly has the effect of making me continue to rethink and reshape my opinions on the matter. So I always appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel very similar. I'm going to give this song a 4.5 out of 5. This is one of my favorite Propaganda songs. There's, in fact, only 2 songs that I like more than this song. Guess what they are?
Oh gosh, I feel like you've ranked these at some point. Oh no, give me a hint. What is it? Victory Lap, one of them? Like
no.
Album? Oh, okay.
Empires and Less Talk.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with. Oh, I should really know this. Okay, from Empires, I'm gonna say with friends like these, who the fuck needs COINTELPRO?
Nope.
Damn, was I even close? What was
no? That? It's same theme as this song.
Oh, was it the one that we just did a cover of?
It's Purina Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, same theme as this song. I thought you meant
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then you said the other one was from Less Talk?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with Nailing Descartes to the Wall.
State Lottery.
All right. Oh, that's right. I did know that. All right. Okay, well, glad I made your top 3. And yeah, thanks for pushing me to do this. As challenging as expected, but like I said, I think it's therapeutic and helpful. So I just appreciate you taking the time to bring me into the fold here.
I really appreciate you coming on the episode. There's no one I would have rather done this episode with. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm not familiar with the actual stats. Greg would know this, but this might be the longest episode that does not feature Greg at all.
Right.
Like,
I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but it is our thing.
Like, we've been recording for 2 hours, and that doesn't include your interview. So yeah, so this is maybe the longest episode that doesn't feature Greg. So well done.
Yeah, you as well.
Thank you everyone for listening. You can follow us on socials. Oh God, Greg usually does this part. I don't know. Propagandipod at whatever. Propagandipod at Gmail. I think that's the email address. Send Greg a message on social. Whatever. No one's listening. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye bye. See you later.